Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Bruce Tamlyn. I'm the former chaplain at Silver Bay, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to provide a group of programs in 2023. And the programs that we're offering this year are all under the title of Making the Most of This Precious Life. And you're welcome to contact me at brucetamlyn@gmail.com if you'd like to. But this title for this whole year, it's a series of lectures that we're doing that all sort of focus on the idea that this life we've been given is a gift, and how do we make the most of this precious gift of life that we have. So there's many different topics that we've done throughout the year. There are 2 a month, so there's 24 total. You may have an opportunity to watch all of them, or just watch some of them, or a few of them, or whatever. But I just need to thank you for being with us today, and I hope that what we do today is helpful for you. I would like to very much thank Austin Porth, Silver Bay's digital media specialist, and his expertise in making this real. Thank you, Austin, for making this all work. Without him, this doesn't happen. And I need to tell you, we're in the Trinity Library, Trinity House Library on the campus at Silver Bay, and it's an absolutely gorgeous day today here, a beautiful fall day where the leaves and the trees, although starting to fall now with some wind, but there's a beauty to them and a crispness in the air. We can tell that winter is not far behind, and the winters, one of the things I just love about Silver Bay is the strength of the seasons. The strengths of the seasons are so beautiful. Sarah, my wife, and our kids, now that they're grown and out of the home, but we've lived here for almost 30 years, and I am just always so grateful for each of the seasons. The summer season, of course, is wonderful, and the lake warms up, and the opportunity to, and then fall comes, and the beauty of fall and apple picking and the colors and the beauty around us is just spectacular. And then winter comes, and there is a beautiful silence to winter, the quiet, and you have a 1.5-foot snowfall, and the beauty of cross-country skiing or snowshoeing, or just there's an exquisite beauty and silence to winter. And then as we start to get a little tired of the cold and snow, the spring comes and the melt happens, and all of a sudden we're into a bit warmer weather, and the lake the ice leaves the lake. It actually sinks. It gets heavy and sinks, and the water starts to warm up, and before you know it, we're swimming again in the summer, and the pattern starts over again. So a little bit of a diversion, but I digress. But I hope I can communicate to you the beauty of the 4 seasons here at Silver Bay. The title of our program today is called, the specific title after our overall title, Making the Most of This Precious Life. The title is The Healing Power of Tears, Crying, the Key to a balanced emotions, key to or emotional balance. The idea that tears, how do we come to understand tears as a sort of a biological concept, but also a spiritual and emotional concept in terms of that. So we'll be talking today about tears and trying to help us and encourage us to be aware of the power that they bring to us in a good way and supporting us in our life. But before we dive into this topic, as we always do, we start with a little centering exercise. So I'm going to step over here to my left into a chair in the Trinity Library, and we take just a couple of minutes to do this centering exercise, to feel a sense of peace and calm, to feel a groundedness about our life. And as I have done in the past, just encourage us to do a brief body scan, starting with our feet and our calves, and just if we're holding any tension there, just to let that tension go, and then moving up through our knees and up to our thighs, again letting tension go and relaxing into the chair and feeling the support of the floor and the chair, and then rising up into our torso, up into our chest, and into our shoulders and our arms. If we're feeling any tension there, just letting that tension go. and then up into our neck and up into our head, and just allowing the tension to flow out of us and relaxing and feeling the support again of the floor and the chair for us. And then as we do this, we do a short breathing exercise, a centering breathing exercise, where we're aware of our in-breath and we're aware of our out-breath. And we focus with our mind on our breathing. We actually follow our breath in and out, and are focusing in our mind's eye, our breathing. And I would suggest that as we exhale, exhale our breath, we would say to ourselves silently a mantra word, a word that brings a sense of peace to us, a sense of fullness and contentment. You pick the word that is best for you. Some use the word love or joy or peace or home, or a word that works for you, that brings that sense of calm for you. I'm going to use the word today, joy, in that way. So let's do this together, and I'll just talk us through it for a couple minutes, and then we'll just do it on our own for a couple minutes. So what we're going to do is we just take an in-breath, and I invite you to close your eyes, and then we exhale that breath. And as we do, we just say, I'm going to say the word in my mind's eye, joy. And we take our in-breath, and as we exhale, just saying our word joy, whatever word you have chosen. And I would invite you to do this just for a couple minutes on your own. Inhale, and then exhale. And you might find thoughts or ideas or things you need to do, or sort of with our monkey minds, sort of things coming to them. Just acknowledge what comes into your mind and let it go, and go back to your breath. So let's just do this again for a couple of minutes together. Inhale and exhale. So let me bring you back, and we've only done this just for a few minutes, but I would encourage you, if this felt comfortable to you, to maybe do this for a little bit longer time, 8 or 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever, on a daily basis as a spiritual practice, the opportunity to ground oneself and to feel in the busy world that we live in, with things going on for us and all that's going on around us that way. This is a way to center ourselves and to feel the beauty that's within us, to feel a sense of calm and peace within. And as I share this with you, I'm so aware of the fact that I enjoy doing this just for a couple minutes before I have an opportunity to share with you whatever the topic is for today, because it kind of grounds me and brings a sense of contentment as I share with you what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to step back over and thank you for doing that exercise together, and we'll now focus on the topic that we talked about before. Again, our title today, The Healing Power of Tears, Crying, the Key to Balanced Emotions. So what's to say about tears? Lots to say about tears, lots of research done on tears, and I'm going to share that with you. But let me just say, the perspective that I'm taking on this is that tears are really healthy for us. To be able to emote, to be able to cry, to shed tears, to feel so deeply that it brings us to tears is a healthy thing for us, both as women and as men, that way. And The program we did this last time was on man's journey and men doing inner work. And oftentimes, and I say this with all due respect, sometimes men, have trouble getting in touch with tears that way. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later as we get into this. But there was an article in The Atlantic magazine by Arthur C. Brooks on this whole topic of tears and crying. And in many ways, what he communicated was that tears, crying, was such a misunderstood element in our emotional life. And that the idea that we somehow feel uncomfortable with tears, or we're embarrassed about our tears, or somehow we shouldn't have tears, or we shouldn't feel that way, or whatever, is sort of built into us. And I'm afraid it hampers our experience of life. It hampers our capacity to feel that way. And so I'm going to take the position today with you that I support the idea of tears and support the idea. And tears, much to say about them, but they reflect deep feelings. And so when we allow ourselves to have deep feelings, and they can not only be tears of sadness or grief or pain, but they can be tears of joy and celebration, and we'll talk about that also too a little bit. But I want to just say anecdotally that I've had the chance to perform over a couple hundred weddings at Silver Bay and other places around the country for Silver Bay people and friends, and as my role as chaplain here, I've been very humbled to perform many, many weddings, hundreds of weddings over these past 30 years. And it's always so interesting to me as weddings that people often cry because of the joy of the event that way. But they're not only crying for the joy of the event, but they're crying because there's a letting go. My daughter's getting married, and she's marrying this man, and they're going to start their own family, and that separates them a little bit from her family of origin. So there's some grieving tears going on there. There's some joy. There's lots of emotions going around weddings. And so I would often say, very intentionally, at the rehearsal, and even sometimes people would cry at the rehearsal, especially when they're practicing their vows at the rehearsal. I wouldn't have them say their whole vows because we save that for the wedding, but just to hear themselves partially say their vows, sometimes tears would break out with mothers or fathers or people watching, or the couple themselves. So I would always say at the rehearsal, please, tears are part of weddings in a healthy way. So there's no embarrassment about tears. Tears are normal. Tears are healthy for us. So if there's tears tomorrow at the wedding, please, and don't ever be any. There's no hard feelings about it. It's just they're joyful, and please let them flow as tears. And I try to normalize this, as tears again are an expression of our deep feelings and our emotions, and they show our profound love. That's what tears are really about. So I would really try to make tears a normal part of a wedding ceremony, which they invariably almost always were. And crying is an interesting phenomenon in our culture. And we get gender diverse messages about this. Women and girls, it's very acceptable for them to cry. Boys and men, less so, not acceptable. Again, as I talked in the male program last time, big boys don't cry. That message is very sad, I think, for men. And I often ask men, as I have a chance to work with them individually, I'll ask a man at some point, as we develop enough trust, I'll ask a man, when did you last cry? Can you remember when you last cried and what brought on those tears? And men oftentimes can't remember when they last cried, or if they've ever cried, in terms of that. And I'm not critical about it, I'm not judging it, there's nothing there, but the idea of helping men allow themselves to be freer to express that emotion rather than locking it all up inside. One of the interesting phenomena, this is years ago now, but you may remember this, those of you that are a bit older, but Senator Muskie from Maine was running for president, was the presidential candidate, and he happened to, at a campaign event, share a story that caused him to have some tears on camera, and it was during the interview and was asked about it, and he showed some pretty strong emotions. And back then it wasn't safe for men to cry that way, and it really knocked him out of the race. It knocked him out of the presidential race, just showing tears on camera, because it was shown on news outlets that this Muskie was crying, and that was seen as a weakness that way, and so unacceptable. And so sadly he didn't win the nomination, and this was really the reason why these tears. I think some things have changed around that. President Obama has cried at different times, and there's been other expressions of tears that have been acceptable, and I'm glad things are changing around this. But anyway, in his article I referred to earlier in the Atlantic magazine, Arthur Brooks speaks to the benefit of crying and the importance of crying as it balances out our emotions that way. And as Brooks says, in some ways crying is a contradiction. It can accompany the most profound grief, but it also can accompany the greatest joy, the deepest joy. So that's the contradiction of tears. Some are around joy and some are around grief that way. And it can be a response also to real anger and frustration. Some people, when they're really angry, actually their response is to cry. But it also can be a response to a beautiful piece of music, or listening to a symphony, or poetry, or watching an acting show, and you're so involved with the characters and their emotions, it can bring tears to your eyes that way. So crying can be a helpful tool to actually understand our feelings and come to be more in touch with our life, our inner life that way. Wow, I'm having tears about this. This must be really important for me. This must be a deep part of my emotional life because it's bringing tears that way. And crying, again, brings a sense of balance to us, a sense of inner peace, a pathway to a deeper awareness of our true nature as the spiritual beings that we are that way. And it's helpful to have this deepening in our awareness of our capacity to love, our capacity to feel and express, and to embrace life that way. That we cry because it means something, and it means something so deeply. And it's important to ask ourselves the question, what are these tears saying? And when I have a chance to work with people one-on-one in spiritual direction or in pastoral counseling or grief counseling, I'll often say, as somebody's crying and as they're able to work through those tears and are able to speak again, I'll say, if these tears could speak, what would they say? What message would they convey that way? And there is a tremendous release when we can cry that way. My own experience of tears, and having been with many others who have cried with me and have cried in my presence that way over the years, there's a sense of actually feeling better after we release these tears, after a crying session. And the word for this is we've had a kind of catharsis, a feeling better that comes with having a good cry. And the word catharsis comes from the ancient Greek word katharesis, I think I'm saying that right, which actually means purification or cleansing. And so there's an aspect of this catharsis that implies it's sort of a spiritual purging. And crying is often followed by a cathartic feeling of release or relief, or feeling a greater sense of inner peace, or a being really content that way, a greater sense of feeling an inner sense of inner joy. And crying can be a powerful way to regulate our feelings and to maintain a balance in our emotional life that way. It helps us balance ourselves out emotionally. Crying can bring about a real sense of inner wholeness for ourselves. We can feel whole about ourselves as we allow ourselves to cry. And it taps into our divine nature. We're, as we say in the YMCA, spirit, mind, and body. We're all of those, spirit, mind, and body. And the idea of this spirit part of us deeply gets touched when we're able to share tears about something or something that's going on, whether it's something out of real joy or something out of real pain and sadness that way. Dutch psychologist Ad Vingerhorts has found in his research that there are two negative crying issues that he calls them negative crying triggers, actually, that are consistent amongst all populations in different cultures. In other words, there's two of these sort of negative triggers that bring about tears. And in his research, he's found the first one is helplessness. And when we feel helpless about something, we've sort of lost all ability to have some sort of control over it. We have this tremendous, overwhelming sense of helplessness, which leads to tears. And the second one is loss of a dear one, loss of something in our life, loss of a friend, loss of a family member, loss of somebody, a dear sense of loss. Both helplessness and profound loss bring us to this edge of emotional expression, tears that way. And in addition, there are times when we weep, and I've talked about this already, but for joy. And there's new research that's actually conducted in several different countries that found that happy crying tends to occur in four different kind of occasions. This is the research that's been done in, again, a couple of different cultures. And these four different occasions are: one, times of extraordinary affection, such as a wedding. And they've actually put a percentage on this that way, that 55% of positive crying occurs in moments of weddings, 55%. The second sort of occasion is moments of unusual achievement, as winning an award. And 29% of positive tears responding to something beautiful happening in our life comes about when somebody's received an award, or you've received an award and you cry about it. We often see this at the Grammy Awards or award shows where you see people in tears because of winning this award. The third, and that's 29% of the time. The third one is an expression of awe in the face of beauty, such an exquisite piece of music, or sometimes watching. I know in my own life, in my own family, is we watch a moon come up, this beautiful big orange ball come up over the mountain across the lake, and it'll evoke some sort of such beauty. It evokes sort of an expression of tears. And that's 8% of the time. And then the fourth time of intense joy is what we call times of intense amusement. And so when something has been so moving for us, that we'll have some positive crying, and that's 3% of the time that way. But you can see the bulk of these joyful tears happen during wedding times that way. And there seems to be some strong connection between happy crying and sad crying. They are both response to emotional extremes that suggest that tears help bring us back to equilibrium. On these extremes, extreme sadness or grief, or extreme joy that way, tears again bring us back to kind of an even equilibrium that way. Some researchers think that there's this literal sort of truth to the Jewish proverb that says this: what soap is for the body, tears are for the soul. I like that. What soap is for the body, tears are for the soul. Soap, of course, washes our body that way and helps us cleanse and get clean. And tears, as they help our soul to get cleaned and washed and refreshed that way. In his book, Crying, The Mystery of Tears, biochemist William Fry hypothesized that we eliminate stress hormones such as cortisol through tears. And the idea that when we do have these tears, that cortisol is released that way. I also want to share with you some of the research that I experienced actually with a researcher, Dr. Alexander Lowen, Lowen. He's now passed on, but he has written about this, a psychiatrist. And he was a big advocate of crying, Dr. Lowen. And his theory was that it was important for us to have the opportunity to express tears almost on a daily basis. And his thinking was that because we're experiencing some sort of loss each day, I'm getting older each day, or some sort of loss each day, it's good for us to experience that loss in little bits. So each day, the idea to be able to express some tears. And he postulated that expressing some emotional loss each day, we would avoid sort of a prolonged sense of loss. And his theory included the idea that we're often denial of loss in our life that we are experiencing. And so on a regular basis, he would help people to cry, and in doing so remain in a better emotional state. And to this end, again, Lowen would show us techniques, and I was actually with him as he did this, techniques that would allow us to cry a little bit each day, teaching ourselves how to cry. And again, having met with Lowen and studied his work, I think he's onto something here, that when we're, again, able to express tears, we feel more emotionally in balance that way. So let me close with a few final thoughts here on tears. Tears are a normal and necessary part of the human experience. Tears and crying are nothing to be embarrassed about or to feel uncomfortable or awkward about. And 3, tears reflect our need for vulnerability and our deep connection with others around us. The ability to cry alone, but also the ability to cry with others. And lastly here, tears are healthy and necessary for our own healing and our growth. A couple last thoughts. Tears help us to get in touch with our deepest feelings and emotions. Tears connect us to what we're most passionate about. And lastly, tears lead us and help us on this inner path to become more the men and women we were created to become. Tears are part of our life experience. Tears make us more aware of what's truly important in our life. And so may we give ourselves permission to express both tears of sorrow and tears of joy in our life. So I hope this has been helpful for you around tears and crying, and that you would give yourself permission to be able to express tears when you feel them welling up inside of you, and not to suppress them, but know that it's a positive experience. It doesn't always feel good, but it supports us in our mental health, our spiritual health, and our overall life experience of centeredness and groundedness. So again, hope this has been helpful. Thank you for being with us today. Be well. Take care. Bye now.